1. Q. How would you handle a situation where a resident refuses to take their medication? Refusing medication can seriously affect the resident's health. Forcing them can be considered abuse or a breach of their rights. I would stay calm and respectful, giving the resident time to express why they don't want the medication. I'd try to reassure them and explain why it's important in a way they understand. If they still refuse, I would document it accurately and report it to the nurse or supervisor, as it may need medical review or a different approach. 2Q. A resident tells you a fellow staff member has been unkind to them. What do you do? It could be a safeguarding issue. Ignoring it might allow abuse or neglect to continue, and failing to report it breaches your duty of care. I would take the resident seriously, listen carefully without making promises or assumptions, and reassure them I will report it. I then inform my supervisor and follow the safeguarding procedure to ensure it's investigated properly and the resident is protected. 3Q. How would you deal with a resident showing aggressive behavior? Aggression can harm the resident, other residents, or staff. Poor handling can escalate the situation or result in injury or accusations. I would remain calm and avoid confrontation. I'd speak gently to try and understand what triggered the aggression. If needed, I'd call for help to ensure everyone's safety. Once the situation is under control, I'd report it, document it clearly, and reflect on what support the resident might need to prevent future incidents. 4Q. What would you do if you made a mistake when giving personal care? Even small mistakes in hygiene, lifting, or procedures can lead to infections, injuries, or legal consequences if not reported. I believe in being honest and accountable. If I made a mistake, I would inform my supervisor immediately, ensure the resident is safe, and complete an incident report. I'd reflect on what went wrong and make sure I learned from it to prevent it happening again. 5Q. A family member asks you about the resident's medical condition. What do you say? Sharing medical details without consent is a breach of confidentiality and could lead to disciplinary action or legal issues. I'd politely explain that I'm not allowed to share personal or medical information due to confidentiality rules. I would suggest they speak to the nurse or manager who can provide the appropriate information. 6Q. What would you do if you saw a colleague neglecting a resident's needs? Neglect is a serious safeguarding concern. Failing to report it makes you complicit and could risk the resident's health or well-being. I would not ignore it. I'd report it to my manager immediately and make sure the resident's needs were met. It's my duty to safeguard residents, even if that means reporting a colleague's behavior through the proper channels. 7Q. How do you prioritize tasks when your shift is extremely busy? Missing urgent care needs, for example, toileting, medication, falls can lead to injury, illness, or complaints from families or inspectors. I always focus on resident safety and urgent needs first, such as toileting, medication, or someone in distress. I also communicate with the team to share tasks where possible. Staying calm, organized, and flexible helps me manage a busy workload without compromising care. 8Q. If a resident becomes attached to you and wants only you to care for them, how would you handle it? It can create dependency, disrupt team care, and blur professional boundaries, possibly leading to emotional distress or favoritism. I'd appreciate that the resident feels comfortable with me, but I gently explain that other staff are also here to help and care for them just as well. I'd make sure they feel safe with others by introducing them and being supportive during the transition to build trust. 9Q. How do you manage emotional stress from working in care, especially when a resident passes away? Unchecked emotional stress can lead to burnout, poor judgment, or even leaving the profession altogether. I acknowledge my emotions but try not to let them affect my care duties. I talk to my colleagues or supervisor when I need support and use reflective practice to process feelings. Self-care and healthy boundaries are important in this line of work. 10Q. What would you do if a resident made a complaint about you personally? If not handled properly, a complaint can escalate, damage trust, or lead to disciplinary action, even if the complaint is unfounded. I would remain professional, listen carefully without becoming defensive, and take the complaint seriously. I'd report it to my supervisor and reflect on whether I could have handled the situation differently. It's important to respect the residents' feelings and use feedback to improve.